Are you struggling to overcome feelings of guilt? If so, you are not alone. So many people struggle with guilt because it is such a complex emotion that is often interconnected with other complex emotions. In this video, I'm going to share some very simple but powerful ideas and practices that will help you to overcome guilt. Hello, my friend. I hope you are well. My name is Matt Tenney. I'm the author of the best-selling book, The Magic of Mindful Self-Awareness: How to Stop Overthinking, Clear Your Mind, and Be Happy almost all of the time. On this channel, I help people apply the practice of mindfulness and mindful self-awareness to be happier, less stressed, and more effective. And I look forward to helping you as well, my friend. If you're struggling with guilt, you're certainly not alone. This is such a complex emotion. It's interconnected with other complex emotions, which often makes it very challenging to overcome. One key idea that I think is probably most important to start with is to recognize that guilt, generally speaking, is a very healthy and important emotion to feel. It's designed to help us be more effective in social groups. So if we violate some moral code or we do something that offends or hurts somebody, we have a feeling of guilt to help us be motivated to change that behavior so that we can be more effective in our social circles and have stronger social relationships. So at face value, guilt is very, very helpful. The problem for many people is that once guilt arises, it tends to linger. And it tends to remain around longer than we need it to be helpful. And then it can become debilitating. So one of the reasons it tends to linger is because it's so interconnected with other complex emotions, primarily the emotions of anxiety and depression, which also happen to be interrelated. So oftentimes, when people who are experiencing prolonged, excessive feelings of guilt, it's because they're also experiencing anxiety or depression. And what tends to happen, particularly with depression, is that we, almost by definition, when we're depressed, we're in a low mental energy state. And when we're in a low mental energy state, we tend to have more negative thoughts and they tend to loop over and over again. And this is not very helpful, unfortunately. Again, guilt at face value is a very helpful emotion, but if it's intertwined with some low energy state, it can be debilitating because it's just creating this self-perpetuating, almost vicious cycle of feeling guilty about something excessively, which then can lead to further depression, which then leads to further feelings of guilt. So because of this complexity, this is not an emotion like anger or a simple bout of anxiety or fear that we can just overcome rather easily using a practice that I call the skill response or the skill practice, which I talk about extensively in my book, The Magic of Mindful Self-Awareness, and it's in a couple other videos on this channel. That process is all about initially down-regulating the fight or flight response in the body. Guilt is not directly tied to the fight or flight response. This is a more complex emotion. It might have some loose ties in certain circumstances, but generally speaking, this is a more complex emotion where it's not just the amygdala is hijacking us and it's going berserk and we can down-regulate it using some very simple breathing tools and naming the emotion, for instance. So the skill practice is not particularly suited for dealing with these more complex emotions like guilt. However, there are some very simple things that we can do to transform guilt from being something that's lingering and not helpful and kind of revert it back to what it's supposed to be, which is an emotion we feel temporarily to compel us to improve the way that we interact with others, to strengthen our social bonds. So the first thing to consider is if you're feeling an emotion of guilt in the first instance, one of the most simple things you can do, and this is assuming that you're not experiencing bouts of anxiety or depression. You did something that you regret and you're feeling guilty. The most simple thing you can do is to say, okay, what did I do that caused some type of harm for somebody else? What is it that I've done that I regret? And what can I learn from this experience that will help me to actually be a better person in the future? Is there anything that I have control over that I could take action on right now to make this better, to make myself better? So in many cases, a face-to-face apology can be very liberating. If we do something that causes harm to somebody else, we feel guilty about it, or we can talk to somebody who is witness to this act if we can't talk to the person directly. But the idea is just having a face-to-face, having that uncomfortable conversation, we can feel so much relief immediately afterward. Beyond that, there might be other things that we could do, whether we can interact with the person or not, that can help us to make amends for what happened and to create some safeguards to make sure that we don't do the same thing again. And if we take action on, and we put some thought into steps that we can take to make sure that we don't repeat whatever behavior it is that happened that we are feeling guilty about, that in and of itself creates this resolution that, okay, I had this feeling that wasn't pleasant, the feeling of guilt. It compelled me to take action, positive action, to improve my social relationships or my social bonds. And once you've taken those actions, in many cases, you'll feel a sense of relief already. Now, it's not necessarily that the guilt is just going to magically go away, but this is the most positive thing you can do right away, is to say, what do I have control over to try to make amends for this situation, to try to improve as a person, to try to be more consistently the person who I would like to be, and take action as soon as possible on whatever ideas you come up with. Now, the second idea here, this is, if you've been experiencing guilt a little bit longer, it's been lingering, particularly even if you've done some things to make amends and you're still feeling guilty, this might be unnecessary guilt at this point. So this, again, is often tied with a low mental energy state. Even if it's not full-blown depression, we just have this lower mental energy state. So there's two important practices here. The second one I recommend doing after this. And this first one is very simple. Whenever we're in a low mental energy state, just changing the physiology of our body, changing the neurochemistry of our brains, can be incredibly transformative. And all this takes, and this is, I know, is easier said than done. If we're feeling depressed, often we don't feel like doing anything, but hopefully this video motivates you to go do it. And you can come back and watch this whenever you need to, but you need to get up off of your couch, get up off of your lazy boy chair, whatever you're sitting on, and go walk. If you're more fit, go run, go to the gym, go exercise. But if all you can do is walk briskly, go outside and walk briskly for at least 20 minutes. As briskly as you can, get your heart rate up, get your body moving. What happens when you do that is you're changing your neurochemistry. You're taking that low mental energy state into a higher mental energy state. And this is not the permanent solution, but this is a temporary solution that not only helps you feel less unpleasant around whatever guilt still remains, whatever guilty thoughts are still arising, but this also sets the stage for you to be able to fully overcome the feelings of guilt, which is the next step. So the next step is, once you've taken some time to get the body moving, get the blood flowing, get some of the positive hormones flowing through the body, change your neurochemistry a little bit, then it's very important to take extra time to do sitting still practice, which I talk about extensively on this channel. I write about extensively in the book, The Magic of Mindful Self-Awareness. It's very important to take extra time to do sitting still practice. Now, the reason that I mentioned doing some exercise first is because this will, again, it will brighten up your awareness. You'll have a sharper awareness to be able to see thoughts clearly as objects, which is the most important part of the sitting still practice. So when you do this sitting still practice, what I'd like you to really pay attention to is, remember, you're not trying to change anything. You're not trying to get rid of anything. What you're trying to do is see clearly what thoughts are there. So you start with an awareness of the body, and I'm not going to go fully into sitting still practice in this video because we talk about it so much in others, but you're starting off with an awareness of the body, just being curious about what's happening in the body. And this also creates an awareness of the mind and its contents. And your only job is to just be curious about what's happening in the body and what's arising in the mind. And as thoughts come up related to the guilt that you're feeling, your job is to allow them to be there, to welcome them, to allow them to come up and even smile to them. This is another simple hack. I'm not encouraging you to be happy, trying to make yourself feel happy if you're not happy. But what happens is if you can smile with this energy of kindness, this energy of compassion for yourself, what happens is you do actually change the neurochemistry of your brain. When you can smile a genuine smile to the thoughts that you're witnessing, you just smile to them saying, it's okay for you to be here. It's healthy for you to be here. I'm not trying to get rid of you or change you. You allow the thought to come up, you smile to it. What's happening is two things at once. One, if you do have a genuine smile of kindness and compassion, your eyes are smiling, this literally changes the neurochemistry in your brain. This creates the same cascading effects as though you just received a message from a loved one or heard a funny joke. You can actually change your brain chemistry just by smiling. But more importantly is that if you allow these thoughts to come up, you smile to them, you see them clearly, you will then also see them dissipate. And when the thoughts dissipate, that's where the insight arises, and the insight deepens. If you've probably already had this insight if you're practicing, but the insight deepens that this thought is not what I am. This thought is an object that arises and passes away in awareness. It's not me, it's not mine. It's just a part of being human. And when the more that this insight deepens, particularly with the specific thoughts that are around this guilty feeling that you have, or multiple guilty feelings that you have, if they're different variations of guilt, every time you see these thoughts cease, they lose their power. It's not going to happen immediately where they just never come back, but little by little, if you're not trying to get rid of them, if you're not trying to change them, if you allow them to be there, you accept them with a kind, compassionate smile, you listen to them and observe them until they cease, they will lose their power, my friend. They will gradually arise fewer and fewer times, and eventually they will stop arising altogether. And if you've done all of the practices we talked about up to this point, there will be no need for guilt to be there anymore. It's not needed. If you've already taken action to make amends, to learn and grow as a person so you can be the person you want to be and be better in the future, and you've done some exercise to get your body moving, to change your physiological state, and you're doing this practice, you will see transformation. And it won't take long, but it's very important that you don't have some expectation of, I'm going to be over guilt in 1 day, or I'm going to be over guilt in 3 days. It might take a few days of sitting still practice. It might take weeks if it's really powerful guilt. But if you do the practices as I described, after each sitting practice, you will realize that there is more space, there's more freedom. And if you're not attached to the outcome, if you're not attached to when these feelings will finally go away and when the thoughts that are triggering these feelings will finally stop arising, if you're not attached to that, and you can always come back to, I'm going to change my physiological state by walking, then I'm going to sit and I'm going to allow these thoughts to come up, smile to them with kindness and compassion, I think you'll be surprised at how quickly you can be free from guilt. I hope this video was helpful for you. If you ever have a question about the practice of mindfulness or mindful self-awareness, or anything that you think that these practices could help with, please be sure to subscribe to this channel and then leave your question as a comment in one of the videos on the channel. I will do my best to answer your question or one like it as soon as I can. If you'd like an in-depth resource for practicing mindfulness and mindful self-awareness, you might like my best-selling book, The Magic of Mindful Self-Awareness: How to Stop Overthinking, Clear Your Mind, and Be Happy Almost All the Time. There's a link to the book in the description. Until next time, may you be happy and may you be kind, my friend.